feel about Joker in the meta. The Joker. I'm only saying this just because it's always been on my life when I lost. I've grown from it, sure, but I guess it may still have some value on how you can help me. It feels other characters have easy ways to get meaningful hits that are lower risk, high reward, whereas they also have really high reward reversals when I try to punish their low risk moves. Basically, if they slip up, they get a slap on the wrist, and if I fuck up, I get fucked. Like Luigi has Cyclone, I can barely punish it enough. Steve has a weird hurtbox and gets at the combos easily. And if Terry or Kaz get any inch of space, they hurtbox your reversal me into a huge reward. On top of them having low risk, high reward options to kill me makes me feel like I have to constantly walk on eggshells to tiptoe around dying to get any meaningful hits in. So I just get a kill while everyone else doesn't have this issue. I think the underlying thing that pisses me off about this is that it feels like people throw it out just to throw it out. I do this too. Very ego heavy, but I feel like I shouldn't be getting hit by stuff like that. Yeah, that's fair. So with that out of the way, I think my issue is approaching this at the wrong angle. This is a linear mindset because I feel like there's probably a workaround to the scenario instead of trying to precisely play out their scenario, which is exactly what the opponent wants. That's true. I'd like your help with this and where to go from here. I feel like it kind of stems from my inability to see bigger picture things. I also think I probably need to explore what would make Joker a better meta character. Aside from allowing Fusada Shield to add another thing to my bag or attack chasing with Footstool. Now we have the list. I think I'm pretty decent at reviewing interactions-based scenario, but it almost becomes kind of meaningful in a grand scheme
meaningless.
of things.
I meant meaningless.
Meaningless. That makes more sense. In the grand scheme of things besides overtime. I'd like your thoughts on this.
Oh, yeah. Okay, my bad.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, like, I meant, like, it's meaningless. It's not meaningless, but, like, at the moment, it doesn't, like, lead to any huge payoff besides, like,
I get you.
over time, my interaction play gets better. Like, kind of like the 33% might go to 40% after reviewing
I get you
it.
entirely. Yeah, and so, like, you still win more interactions, but, like, that doesn't matter when they're hitting a single Roy Nair and killing you for, off of a single interaction. So I get that. I think this comes from simplifying the game, I assume. Like, I think I have a good understanding of most things. It's just hard about putting about putting it together and actually utilizing it. That's fair. We'll talk about that. What I do to cover space versus how I could do better. To me, it looks and feels like I cover space just to do it while also doing it effectively at that. I need to still do this, by the way. Are we doing VOD review today?
Yeah, I have 2 VODs
Perfect.
with the same. What the run I made, the Sora, Kazuya, Sora,
Right.
Sora, Sonic.
The most fun bracket in the history of brackets.
The demon time bracket.
But like actually, holy moly.
No, I was like,
Right.
me and the TO are good friends, and I'm like, bro, what the fuck?
Why you do me dirty like that? What do you say?
He put like the emoji with the person covering their eyes.
He knows. He did it on purpose. Did you do him dirty? Did you steal his DVDs? Oh, well, I mean, DVDs don't exist anymore, right? Now I'm showing my age. You get me. All right, so to me, it feels it looks and feels like a cover space just to do it while also doing it ineffectively at that. I think the biggest upgrade my play needs, I could be wrong, that's why I hired you, is making more decision based on timing. So, okay. I think the easiest example to see where this is most relevant is my gun usage. It's
really
kind of
bad.
like I'm doing it just to do it instead of when and why. Yeah, it's very noticeable how just slightly delaying things as you impacts. It's very evident when doing things like shoot pressure. Spark with us is a lot true. This can also be found when I do jumps. I mix up landings decently well by delaying landings with platforms and double jumps, but I have a nasty jump timing habit off the ground. I have a ripping timing when someone hits my shield or at a certain spacing. That makes sense. Okay. Finding where I can get Rebels guards in and better decision making based on my meter.
And
For example,
you see that with
stage.
Leia this week. And like
Yeah.
I always thought that, but like I never pursued it per se. I guess because I was just more interested in pursuing other things.
So what exactly did you see Leo do?
Well, not exactly what I see Leo do, but like just like fuck it, like risk it, go for Rebels guards, like getting more Arsene.
Yeah.
Getting more Arsene is how we can bullshit people more. Like
True.
if you want to bullshit the bullshitter, I mean you got to figure out how.
Yeah,
He's kind of always done more Rebels guard than most people, or like
True.
most of the other Jokers. So, but I meant like you could see it a lot where like, and whenever he was doing like double jump landing mix ups against Wario, he's like, oh well, he's like, he wants to intercept my landing, so I'm gonna just Rebels Guard, or like, just like weird scenarios like that. And my friend Zai, when he plays Joker, he like
Mm-hmm.
experimented with Rebels Guard tapping, so like scenarios where like I don't even know exactly the science of it, and I don't think he does either, but like just like you buffer in scenarios where it can be used, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
reactable, but like you have to be set up to reactably punish it. It has 30 frames
Okay.
in lag, I think. Oh, 33. Yeah.
Yeah. It's 52 total. It's pretty rough.
Well,
Okay.
I think that's
I see
only
what
if
you
you
mean.
if you hold it down all the way, right?
Well, total phrases for minimum usage is what it says.
Oh, okay.
It's just I get what you mean though. I
Yeah.
get what you mean though. Um, Forcing the opponent to play my game. I always felt Joker conformed to his opponent's win cons, but maybe I'm not entirely right. Wow, who would have thought? Recently, Leo said Joker can play the same game plan against most matchups, so I think I had the wrong idea about my game plan. But what is game plan truly is. Sometimes, not the Joker. Sometimes Joker
That's what
feels
he
so
said.
comfortable.
That's what he said.
Yeah, I hear you. I autocorrected it. It was Google Docs fucking up. Uh, Sometimes Joker feels so comfortable because you can follow the same game plan of zoning camping. This was after beating Zap. Moving well, which is through moving with intention. To move with intention, we move to accomplish a goal,
Which you talked
and
about
then
before.
valuing, yeah, and then valuing parries about more than I do right now. This can shut the opponents down who have the same timings. True. Overall, I want to simplify the game while also gaining a different perspective. I think after hard grinding the game for a bit, I got a little burned out, and an ice break plus Leo succeeding has changed my mind. Which doesn't necessarily mean I won't think like that again. So after this lesson, I'll hopefully have a more fresh new perspective on how I should play, as well as stop bitching like I'm literally playing a top tier. He can do it. Crying emoji, true. Um, right. I guess. I feel like this is too much to discuss in one session, especially since we have to watch VODs. I just kind of want to clear my headspace. One last thing, I think I'm also wrongfully playing through the lens of I want to play the way that I want to play, not necessarily the way I need to play. Kind of like I'll throw in decks by gun camp for a little bit to check off boxes. My play also seems very sporadic. Like there are. Okay, this is a very very good bit of text.
I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Like legit. Like this is gonna make it very easy for me to give you feedback. I already know what we're gonna be talking about, like 99% sure. But I think we'll watch the VODs just to be sure, okay?
Okay. I probably should have sent them.
That's fine.
Okay.
It's not too late.
It's not too late, luckily. So, like for this example, this is why you should never make comparisons. But
Mm-hmm.
this is a Steve who we have a Steve ranked 12. This is the one I lost to, and then we have a Steve ranked 5. And I be fucking the fifth Steve. And this Steve like does some bad shit and like loses in some horrific ways to people. But then like I struggle with this one way more than the other one just because he quotes covers more space mashing I mean covers space uh
I hear you. I hear you. He covers spaces the Steve way.
and yeah, I don't know. I just and like there's that like the subconscious mental block I have of the people throwing things out just to throw it out, but it works. So
I
and it
will I
doesn't
will
work when I
use
do it.
minecart because it's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get you. Okay, let's take a look. So again, I already probably know what we're gonna be talking about, but I'd like to see the gameplay
You
still.
said I can read you.
I said, no, listen. What I say is you gave me such a good document that I don't even need to look at your gameplay anymore. Isn't that crazy? Let's take a look.
So this game is the rough doing what I want to do. I
Yeah.
think. I think.
Hmm.
And this is something you talked about before, but in terms of like the simplifying, broadening, or whatever, Like you
Mm-hmm.
said that before you start to like hard read somebody, before you like, oh, he's gonna spot dodge, he's gonna roll in whenever I go near his shield in the back of the shield or whatever. It's like first you broke it
Mm-hmm.
down to, in this general scenario, he picks a defensive option. What defensive option does he pick? This one. What makes him specifically like, etc. I think like you talked about it before randomly on a stream, but like shit like that I don't do enough. Like I don't simplify it to, oh, he's just attacking. Like I say he's gonna do an attack or whatever, but I don't position myself right for it. Stuff like that, I guess.
I hear what you mean. Okay. I'm gonna watch for that. Hmm. Why is there two overlays, bro? What the heck?
Oh, that is weird. I didn't even notice that. That's funny actually. Oh look, it's gone.
Well, sometimes Steve Becker's you at 117. He's gonna hit you still. Yeah, okay. I mean, getting Becker at 130 is not that bad.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not getting hit by the minecart. Gets hit by the back air.
Yeah, yep. The second layer of bullshit kill moves. Holy shit.
Yeah, I just should have down aired.
Let it rip. It's a
No
hard choice to
Beyblade.
make though.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm gonna just cover
Yeah,
this space. But with
that's
hindsight,
good.
you know.
Yeah, if you were a superhuman, you could have killed him. That tends to happen in like every game. Even like really good players, they'll be like, "Hey, if you were like actually like Superman, you would have killed him."
Just
Oh,
become superhuman.
true.
Superhuman just means you're better than everyone else. So,
Yeah, like literally better
dude,
than
and I was telling
everyone
this to
else,
my
which
friend actually, the why do you want to win? Like I feel like I just want to win. Like I just want to whoop everyone's ass. And it's like it's not cuz I need to win, but it's like I just want to win. But like and then that's kind of mixed in with the like I have the learning mindset, like I mainly just care about my improvement and learning. Boom.
mm-hmm.
But yeah. So maybe it gets fucked up somewhere in there.
I mean, you obviously care a lot, which is not a bad thing. I'm not someone who thinks like you should never want to win, right? Like ideally, like if I again, if you're superhuman, you're like some sort of like enlightened Zen Buddhist monk who's like, I don't care about winning. All I care about is the process. But like we're fucking human, dude. Like you're investing so much time into something like this. Like of course you care. And so like it's okay to care. I think what you need to do is not try to not care when you actually care. You know what I mean? Because that's gonna take a lot of fucking effort. And it's the other way around too, right? So like you know how sometimes you don't really want to do something and then you have to do it anyway.
Yeah, like
And so
VOD
like
review?
in those right, kind of yeah. And so in those situations, is it easy to VOD review?
No. But it's like
It's very
seamless. It's seamless whenever I just randomly want to. I'm like, I just randomly get like I don't even want to call it motivation because that's not what it. Like I'm motivated to VOD review, but like, bro,
sure,
sometimes I just wake up different. I'm like, all right, I got that new perspective. I'm about to
sure.
kick ass.
But like what I'm trying to say here is like if you don't feel like it and you do it anyway, it takes like that much extra effort, right?
Yeah, like it's if I don't feel like it and I try VOD reviewing, it's gonna be ass.
Exactly.
I get
And
nothing
so
done,
the opposite is also true. If you do care about something,
and I act
but
like I
you
don't.
try not to,
Mm,
it's gonna take a lot more effort.
damn.
And so
Yeah.
like if you care about this, if you care about winning, and you try to not care because like that's quote unquote the best way to do it, um, then that's gonna take a shit ton of effort. Like it's very hard to not care when you actually do care.
Yeah.
And so like if you care about winning, then you should accept the fact that you care about winning. But what you should be doing, if you want to optimize it, right? Like you should not, like you should be doing whatever you want to do. But like if you want to optimize that, what I recommend is I recommend focusing on, um, what I recommend is I recommend focusing on being able to convert that feeling of I want to do it into actual productivity, right? And so there's how should I say this? There's fuck this sucks, and then you get depressed and you shut down. And then there's fuck this sucks. I'm gonna grab this shit by the balls and make it my bitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And
I
and
am
both
not
of
losing to this fucker ever again. Like that kind of that dedication. But it doesn't happen
that
every time,
energy.
you know? But I mean,
Right.
maybe you could force that energy? I don't know.
Well, what I think is important if you want to talk about kind of like the motivation, right? Because that's kind of like what we're talking about is motivation, right? And so to me, there is essentially a few categories of motivation, right? There is intrinsic motivation,
Yeah.
there's extrinsic motivation,
Yeah.
and there's like toxic motivation, and there's positive motivation, right?
Toxic motivation. I want to get good to play with my friends.
This is I want to win.
That's toxic.
Well, I mean, yeah, because like why does it fucking matter?
Because I want to beat the other player's ass.
Exactly. That's a little toxic, isn't it?
When I say it like that, when I say it like that, yeah.
Right? And so positive motivation is like, I love the journey. Oh my god. I'm going to post on LinkedIn about how I actually don't care about my
Why
job.
you have
I
to
just
say
want
it like a cornball?
because like it's corny, right? But it's positive, right? And like I love the journey too, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no, me too. Everyone does.
But like the thing is, there's no one in the world. Again, this is very like if you think about like Zen Buddhism, this is where like Zen Buddhism kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
only appreciating the journey is so hard to do.
It's only done after.
Like, exactly.
Yeah.
And so like there's literally like been multiple religions made just to be able for people to try to reach this point. And so like I think at that point we can all agree that like this is not something that exists in and of itself. And so that's why I say like a cornball, because people who say that shit, they're lying. That's not all there is to it. Like you can love the journey. I do too.
Yeah,
but I know you
like
also love winning.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. Like to me, it's not even about the money or anything. Like I'm not gonna lie, I've been butthurt because my weekly scene's been gone, and I haven't like I've placed top 3, but I haven't like won an event in a minute. But it has less to do with the money and more like I want to win. Like.
Right. And then there's things you want for your own sake, and things you want for essentially social sake, right? So something outside of you, right?
Yeah.
And so that can be like money.
Cloud, yeah.
Exactly. And so oftentimes extrinsic things are toxic and intrinsic things are positive. But intrinsic things.
Toxic isn't necessarily bad. Extrinsic is bad.
Right. So I think you can make that distinction, and I would not disagree. I think most generically, what I would say is it's all right to take on extrinsic and toxic motivation, as long as you can cope.
Okay. Because when I think of someone like I went to Houston and I met Broken, and he told me the only reason he plays Smash, like he shit talks it all the time. He told me the only reason he plays Smash is for the money, and like no wonder you hate the game and why you're not even that crazy. Like you only play for the money. And it happened to my friend. He was really good and he started off really nice, and then he started placing top 3s at our locals back when the game came out, and then it made him stop liking the game because he was playing for money. And so, but now I got him back into it and he loves it. So
Good.
But
yeah, and so like I always think like the intrinsic and positive stuff, that should be your basis, right? Like that should be your go-to.
Yeah.
That should be your bread and butter. But we can take on extrinsic and toxic motivation because like it's still motivation, right?
Yeah, you're right.
And so like the difference is there's I lost, and then like you break down and cry and get upset, right? And you rage. Or you can say well, next time I'm going to make sure that never happens again, right? And so like if you can cope with the toxicity, what you get is really strong motivation, But if you cannot cope with the toxicity, it's gonna fucking break you apart.
Yeah, you fall down multiple steps.
Exactly. And so the way I like to think about it is like these positive and like things, they are like a candle burning. It's very solid.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very predictable. It's very consistent, but the output is not amazing. It's a flame,
it's like
right? It's
fat.
gonna keep you
It's fat.
exactly.
It's
Yeah,
you can burn it slowly over time, but you need carbs. You need carbs to fuel the
exactly.
fire.
Yeah. So if this is your candle, these are your jet fuel. They're gonna get you very far very quickly. But if you're not careful, it's gonna burn you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because jet fuel uses anything, including your own mental state as fire. And once your mental state's gone, you're it's done. Like
Yeah.
you leave. And so like I don't mind you saying I want to win, right? Like again, like if that is how you feel, resisting against that is not gonna help you. Because if you resist against how you actually feel, you're just going to be spending a lot of time and energy denying how you truly feel, and you'll still feel that way even if you deny it. So like it doesn't do shit to deny it. And so like what we should do is we should think like how much of this toxicity can we handle? How well can we cope with it? And like if it's too toxic, if it's stuff that we cannot cope with, then maybe we can learn like better ways to cope with with like the negative part of competing. Or you can say, well, maybe there's some sort of way to change my perspective on what I want to get out of competition to make it less toxic. But we shouldn't go denying the way that we feel, right?
Yeah.
Because as soon as you do that, things start going really, really bad. Okay?
That makes a lot of sense.
Cool. So let's actually get into the gameplay because like that's why we're here, right?
Sorry. I'm
No, it's
distracted.
fine, it's fine. This is all stuff that is important to tackle. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
That's not
Gold
true,
is
right? Or it's true with gold.
well on your DI it was.
Oh, well, yeah, with the DI, yeah.
Yeah, so like
I
you
mean,
DI'd, I think full
I
in.
was holding into him. I was like, I'm gonna cross him up and land behind him.
There you go. You died for it. Okay. So let me think. Okay, you're gonna have to remind me. Have we talked about like situation interaction strategy before?
Situation, interaction, strategy, like whereas you break it down into steps.
Yeah, into those three like categories.
Yeah, like you don't just run to the wall. You get closer, then you get closer, then you threaten going over or breaking the wall, then you actually do it, and then once it's over, then you threaten going past the wall and pressuring him or whatever.
Okay.
We talked
So I
about it
think
specifically with that example, but I don't think we went
yeah.
deeper into it.
So when Leo talks about having a generic game plan, I think we're at a point in the meta where every character has a generic game plan that they can apply to any matchup that has kind of been figured out.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I want to teach you today. The thing is, so here's the thing, right? Normally, I teach someone a strategy, and the idea is that you get good enough at that strategy to get success with it. And once you are at that point, then you can start applying other strategies, right? Because if you don't even control like the basic strategy, then like it doesn't make sense to make the choice in other strategies. It's kind of like if we're playing rock paper scissors, and you don't even know how to form like scissors with your hand, you cannot even use it, right? And so like how I try to do it is I try to teach you how to make scissors, and once you have scissors, then I can show you how to pick other options, and then you can start working on the other options, right? But if you are frustrated with the fact that you have to kind of like play towards the opponent a lot, that is fair. So what I'll do is I'll teach you the generic game plan of Ultimate. And one caveat there then is that this is actually like, I don't think you can act on this much yet. It's going to take a little bit of time to learn this. And so there might be some frustration in kind of like revamping the way you think about the game, because the way we've been working is I've been teaching you essentially how to work on a singular game plan that we've kind of been evolving and iterating on over the sessions that we've had. And I actually don't think we're ready. We're done with that yet. But like I can solve your problem. And so like what I want is I want you to keep playing the game, because
Problem
if the
solving.
game is frustrating, you're not going to play it, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you this so that you can find some more enjoyment in the game, and hopefully through that enjoyment you're going to keep playing, and by continuing to play you're going to be able to do the things that we talked about eventually. Okay?
Okay.
It's not super deep. I know I'm explaining it as if it's like the hardest thing in the world, but it's not. But let's start.
Before you start, I feel like it involves how you value stage control and utilizing backdash. Cause like I noticed that the one thing that's common with every character is that nobody can fuck with Joker's backdash. Nobody.
So the cool thing is that it does, in the sense that it is an important part. Backdashing is very important. But the nice part is that it's actually not a main theme of the game plan. And so like, you remember, I think it's one of the first things I told you is that Joker's backdash is like backdash is like the best move in the game. You remember that?
Yeah, it was with the Ices. Yeah.
ISCs, yeah. I told you backdash is the
Single-handedly changed that matchup.
yeah, because like backdash is broken, and so we've been working a lot off of essentially backdash, um, as a starting point for our game plan. And then we added gun because gun is also super broken, and we kind of build around that. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be building around something else entirely, and it's going to be very weird. So let's start. We have to start with theory first, and then I'll explain to you how the game plan works. So the theory is, first we have to kind of like split the game into three different kind of like steps. There's three, kind of like a pyramid, right? Or more of like a ladder. So there's three elements to the game. One is your strategy, two is situations, and three is interactions. And so we can kind of look at the game as being a shit ton of interactions, but the interactions are limited by the situation that we find ourselves in. And so if we look at it from that perspective, we would say, well, the game is a shit ton of situations. But if we look at it from that perspective, then, well, what the situations mean depend on the strategy, right? And so, like, I'll give you an example. If you're in a corner here and your opponent's like right over here, normally this is a bad thing, right? But if we're in a strategy where we're whiff punishing, then this could be that we just dash back to make them whiff, and we can come back in to punish them. Whereas if our strategy is more so relying on controlling the center stage and kind of like walling, then this is really bad. And so the situations are different depending on the strategy that you're using. I'll give you more concrete examples in a little bit, but just keep that in mind.
So should that mean that I should enforce different strategies based on where I'm at? Or is it more so a character-to-character thing? Okay.
So the thing is, where you're at is going to change depending on the strategy. Okay? So your interactions change depending on the situation you're in, and the situations you'll find yourself in is different depending on the strategy. Okay? And so one strategy that we can, like, essentially your strategy is your game plan, and the strategy is the least like concrete, in the sense that your strategy probably has a lot more to it than you could even write out. So I work with Shiny Mark, right? And Shiny Mark has really, really, really solid strategy. I think probably the number 2 in the world after Sonic's, in my opinion. Maybe 3 if we like Tweak is up there as well. I gotta give credit to Tweak. But point is, even for Shiny Mark, who's really into strategy, if I told him you gotta write things down, like, he could not write down every single thing that he does.
It's like intuitive.
And that is
subconscious.
Yeah. And like not all of it. A lot of it he could write out.
Yeah.
But there's even more of it
that's
just
much
like
missing.
there.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so like strategy we should define this, but we should not try to be like super exact about this, because we never can be. Fair enough. Situations, this is the context, right? So this is essentially the circumstance you find yourself in, and then the interactions, these are essentially this is your RPS, right? So we've talked about attack Yomi before, right? Setup, intercept, waiting. You remember that?
Yeah.
Right. And so that is this, right? So attack Yomi is going to be your interactions. Like you said yourself, you're pretty good at playing interactions, but as you realize, like, playing interactions by itself, especially for Joker, is not a good idea. And so here's an example, right? So let's say our strategy is our stage control based / dashback focused strategy, right? This is essentially what we've been working on so far. And so in this context, what we're going to find is we're going to find a lot of situations, right? So a lot of situations will exist off of us backdashing or using gun and then reacting to what happens after. And so what you'll find is you'll find situations where, for example, you're in control in the center and then you dash back while they jump in and now you get to whiff punish them, right? And so like you'll find a lot of that situation if you're playing this way. But let's say we play in a way like Steve, where he's pulling, like where he's mining, he's going to find a lot of situations that are related to, well, exactly that, mining, right? And so what you'll see is that every single game plan will lead to different situations. Sometimes situations are similar, right? So like, you know, you'll have whiff punishes in every single game plan because it's just part of the game. But generally, you'll find different situations based on the different strategies, and that means you also play different RPS. And so because we are focusing so much on whiff punishing the opponents, we have to play around the opponent a lot. Why? Because every character has different whiffs. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. It's also me relying on them picking an option.
Exactly. Like
Which they
we are reactive.
You know, they want to play Smash, so.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this. Oh, don't open that up. We'll talk about the issue with punish. But let's talk about this a little bit more. So like strategy, this is very much like intent. Intent about where you want to be. So another way of thinking about it is to flip. What situations do we want to be in? And then we can go one step further. What interactions do we want to play? What situations can we find that interaction in? And then how do we get there? Right? And so strategy leads, like the strategy informs your movement. / desired position. And then what we want is for every strategy, we want different ways to get into those positions. And that's your situations. So I'll give you an example, right? Easy one. Roy approaching. So the strategy is to close the gap. Very simple strategy. But there are multiple situations that we can find as we try to close the gap. Right? Because what we can do is we can short hop Naren. We can short up empty. We can full hop in. We can use our double jump. We can dash up. And so like what we can see is these are already like 5 different situations that all follow the same strategy. Do you see what I mean?
To close the gap, yeah.
And so this is why I often talk about Joker having such a good full hop. Because if Joker's strategy is to whiff punish, it's good to be able to whiff punish horizontally and vertically. Because if you always whiff punish horizontally, what are people going to do? They're going to overshoot and you die. And if you always whiff punish vertically, what are people going to do? They're going to overshoot and you're going to die. And so what we need, again, is we need multiple ways to do the same thing. Right? And so that is what we're seeing here. And then finally there's the interaction, right? And then we interact, this is more specific actually. So like interactions can be more generic in the sense that you can say like, oh, Joker Nair is like really good to interact with, and we can use like attack Yomi, which is like reasonably generic, right? But the way you interact with like a Pikachu shield and a Ridley shield is going to be extremely different. And so interactions to me usually is the most character specific. But at the same time, it's still generic enough to be able to keep up with it, in my opinion. Anyway, I digress. So this is essentially the 3 categories that I think, well, there are more, but these are the most objective ones. The other ones are for like really, 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 really high level players. These ones are for you. Strategy, situations, interactions, and this is honestly, so for me, like I was like top 20, top 25 Europe. And for me, this is most of what I had to deal with. And so like if you want to get to like a decent level, I think top 25 in an entire continent is a decent level. If you want to get to a decent level, this is all you really need. Honestly, especially nowadays in Smash. Does this make sense to you so far?
Yeah. Um,
What are you thinking?
like you said, like you just can't put it into words. Like I never even like I could easily tell you the strategy with like grounded play, and I jump a lot, and I wouldn't have even said like, oh yeah, I also need to be able to do it vertically. So you're saying that with punish vertically is a different situation. Yeah, exactly.
But it's the same idea, right? I want them
It's
to
the
whiff
same
and then want to
strategy.
attack
It's with
them.
punish.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's broad.
yeah. And so like you can have more well-defined strategies in the sense that you can say like, oh, I have like a grounded strategy and I have like an aerial strategy and I have a this and a that. Like you can be very broad with it. You can also be very specific. That's both valid, right? Like it's valid to say, hey, my strategy is to control the stage and like use dashbacks to force whiffs.
Dash backs
That's
and dash attack. Yeah, like
yeah.
I'm a dash attack fiend. I just want that
There you
stage
go.
control.
There you go. And so like that is valid. And then what you're gonna find is you're gonna find that you have more individual situations that you tend to go for within that broad strategy. Whereas if you make your strategy more like specific, you're gonna have less situations within that strategy. Because like if you need to adjust, what are you gonna do? You're gonna use a different strategy. Does that make sense? So like an
Yeah.
example of that would be like, okay, my strategy is like stage control, dashback focused. And sometimes I'll go about that with like grounded situations, and sometimes I'll go about that with aerial situations. Or you can say, this is my grounded playstyle, and if that fucks up, I'm gonna play my aerial playstyle. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Both of that is fine. Honestly, I've seen people do either or. Uh and in my experience makes absolutely no difference. Absolutely no difference. So like whatever like way of internalizing you prefer. So this is all I have to say about this. So what we want to do is usually if we want to create a strategy, we have to think like what interactions is Joker good at? And so like how are we going to get to the situations in which we can find those interactions? And so this is why dashback is such a focus for us as Joker, is because like generally I think Joker's strongest suit is with punish. Because dash grab is so amazing and you cannot just hit a raw dash grab on anyone because people in this game will be spamming movement, right? And so like you want to have some sort of opening that allows you to dash grab. Um and
And that's dash attack and jump in there.
yeah, exactly. And so like what we'll do is we'll go for dashbacks because dashbacks naturally lead you to a game plan where you generally find a lot of with punish situations, which lead to the interaction that we want, which is dash grabs. Makes sense. So here's the issue with punish, right?
They don't have lag. Auto
Exactly.
L canceling.
Oh
I
no,
I think I could
this
punish
game
the
is
Steve forward air
ridiculous.
as it's come. Like I think I could punish the Steve forward air while I'm right next to him, but I can't. And
Exactly.
but then that's where
That's
like the dash grab comes in and using position instead of just. But like usually you want to take what's guaranteed instead of an interaction, right?
yeah, and so
What?
that's why this playstyle feels bad, is because if they are mashing and they hit you, they get something big and guaranteed. Whereas like our with punish pressure is kind of like it's a possibility, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. So I'm gonna write this out. So the idea is, and there's more to it because what we're gonna do is we're gonna do what they do. So we first need to understand why whiff punishing sucks for us to be able to start mashing properly, if that
Okay.
makes
No,
sense.
yeah, I love it.
Um. Okay. So here's what I think. Right. Um. Whiffs have no lag, but more importantly, short hops are barely unreactable. And I don't mean like unreactable as in you cannot react, but unreactable as in like meaningfully.
Like there's too many factors. Drift, fast falling.
Well, not even that, but like let's take a look at Cloud. Cloud doesn't have the best short hop in the game. He has a decent one, very like middle of the road. His short hop fast falls 26 frames. So let's say we are anticipating a jump. So we're like fully reacting and we have like good reaction time, right? So that gives us about 20 frames of reaction time, right? About 13 to 14 for reaction and 6 to 7 for input delay is 20, right?
Yeah.
And so what does that mean? That means that we can react to this, right? We can react because it's 26 and we have 20. Okay, so we have 6 frames to do something now. Can you anti-air Cloudbacker in 6 frames?
Fuck no.
No, I mean there's a character that can.
Uh,
See if we can find him.
Yoshi? No.
No, 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 no. There he is.
Oh yeah. Okay, that's who I was gonna say, but I was like, he doesn't have a nair, but I guess up
No,
he is.
he has an invincible upbeat. It's invincible
Yeah.
from frame 5 onwards, and the hitbox comes out on frame 3. And so, like, if you see a Cloud jump and his spacing is not perfect, you just upbeat him. And like, there's like this character is meta because he is the like essentially the only character in the game that can react to jump ins. Steve arguably as well because he has like a frame 3 up tilt, but he just gets outspaced way more than Game Watch upbeat because Game Watch, if he's wrong, what does Game Watch do? He just like floats down. And he chills.
Some kind
So,
of landing mix up.
anyway, short ups are barely are barely unreactable meaningfully, and so we cannot really react to a short hop. And so what does that mean? That means that jumps are really broken. Then on top of that, the nuance is too great. So this is like your drift and your timings and your, like your fast fall slash non-fast fall. Your aerial timings too. So this is jump timing. There's drift, and then there's also, so there's initial drift, and then there's post apex drift, which is also two different things that a lot of characters can influence. Joker too, by the way. There's aerial timings slash lack of aerials. There's full hop versus short hop. Full hops are actually viable in this game, especially as Joker. And so like if we just like combine all of these permutations together, there's already like a few hundred different outcomes at least. If not, like we might even get into the thousands depending on how many timings we group together. Which again depends on how on the matchup, because like a Shulk has larger windows of timings because he has slower frame data but also a slower swing, whereas a character like Steve has smaller windows of timing because he can just like up tilt repeatedly, right? That makes sense. And so like a single timing lasts less long because like if you read the fact that he's going early and you go a little late with your jump, he just like up tilts again. Whereas if you read Shulk's timing and he goes late, you just hit him because like his frame data is so bad that there's a huge gap there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Point is, this is what I call nuance. Is just like you can know what someone does, but you don't know the way that they're gonna do it in.
Yeah.
And that's not like your mistake. That is just like the game being the game. That's just how this game is.
Yeah.
And so, whiffs have no lag. Short ups are barely unreactable. Nuance is too great.
Just requires too much precision.
Exactly. And so what does this all mean? This all means that reaction sucks. So a way to think about reaction is that it's a trade-off. So it's kind of like it's a slider, okay? And so on one end of the slider, we have like, let's say like super preemption, right? On the other hand, we have like super reaction. The perfect reaction. And so the way we can think about this is in terms of info. So if we super preempt, we have no info. If we super react, we have a lot of info. But on top of that, there's another trade-off, which is time. We have a lot of time if we are preemptive, but we have no time if we are reactive. And so what happens is that the more we react, the more info we have, but the less time we have to act on that information. Whereas if we're super preemptive, we have no information, but we can do whatever we want. Now, which one do you think is better?
Taking shots in the dark.
Yeah.
Or shooting at something with minimal time.
Exactly.
But
like
I thought,
from the hip.
aren't top players usually trying to find as many places they can react as possible?
Yeah, they
and
are.
They use that reaction to make a preemptive choice.
So here's the thing, right? Even if we're acting at this point, we are reacting to something.
Yeah.
And so like this distinction of preemption and reaction is not an actual distinction, right? This is all reaction. But one of the reaction is more preemptive and another reaction is more reactive. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so like what happens is there's probably like some sort of sweet spot in here for your character, wherever the fuck it is, where they act optimally. So I'll give you an example, right? Roy can act here. You know why Roy can act there? Because he has a move that requires no time to come out, that requires a decent amount of info to work because it has a huge sour spot. That gives him huge rewards. It's called a job.
Yeah, I love Roy.
So Roy is really good in that. So like, why is Crom's neutral better? Because Crom's doesn't need as much information to hit his jab or his other moves. So Crom can act like here. And so what does that allow Crom to do? It allows him to take the initiative. Whereas Roy struggles a little bit more with initiative. Which, like, if you look at Kola, what he'll do is he'll feint taking the initiative to bait the opponent in. Anyway, we'll get to that in a little bit. So the point is, there's some sort of combination here where you have enough information to act in a way that is accurate enough, where you still have enough time to do that thing. And so for Joker, let's think about, like, what is Joker's best neutral tool in terms of risk reward?
Nair, Hurtbox Shift.
Exactly.
Either
Nair.
decent
Nair is it.
reward or yeah, it's easily Nair.
So like, what information do you need to press Nair?
The only thing you don't want to press Nair into is if someone's shielding. But even if they're shielding right in front of your face, I can usually drift out. So
like, yeah. So what does Nair lose to?
it loses to bad spacing on shield. It loses to bigger hitboxes that cover a big space.
That's it. You lose to bigger
That's it.
hitboxes. And so, like, if you have the information that they cannot outrange you, you press Nair. And so, like, which three of these bubbles, let's call these A, B, C. I know they're like ugly, but like whatever. At which point do you think you know that they're not gonna throw out a big hitbox? For most characters, let's put it that way.
Wait, what you mean that they won't?
So, like, let's say you're playing against Sephiroth, right?
Yeah.
How much time does he need to outrange your Nair?
Well, you can't react to it, so.
Right. So like at what point, let's assume this is like a time scale where this is like the last moment you can react to something happening, and this is like,
he's going to be
let's
an
say,
A.
pretty preemptive.
He's going to be an A.
Exactly. So again, Sephiroth, this is the point at which you can take the initiative. And if he hits you, that's because he was like hard reading you super preemptively. And if he's hard reading us super preemptively, then like, okay, fuck it, then we can just like preempt in a different way and we'll be favorable, because he has to be super specific about how he's going to beat us. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So wait, if Sephiroth is in A, if he
Yeah.
has to be super preemptive, you're saying that I should be super preemptive back?
What I'm saying is, because he needs a lot of time to set up what he needs to, right? To set up to outrange you, we can be super preemptive.
Oh, okay. I
Because
see. Yeah, like
because he
can't
needs so
rise and
much
fair
time.
me. Yeah, like he has to
Right.
set up a jump.
We will see what he's doing so early that we will very early on, we will already know if we can get away with being preemptive or not. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas a character, let's say we're playing against Steve. Where do you think Steve is? A, B, or C?
Steve's like all the way on the left side of A.
Steve. Yeah, because like he likes to
and he
range
can be
his speed to
reaction
do
because
shit.
he has the time, but you don't see it as much.
Exactly. And so like there's characters where you can be more preemptive and there's characters where you can be more reactive, but you're always doing the same thing. You're figuring out at what point do I have enough information to press Nair. That's all.
And Steve's weird because I can't react. Like, I can't react and punish specifically his moves. Like, I can react to his movement or stuff like that. But my preemption loses to his preemption if he just throws out attacks. Like, my
We'll get to that.
Yeah, okay.
We'll get to that. That's a very good observation. Let's continue. So, early commitments is low information, high time. Late commitments is high information,
Low time. Yeah.
low time. So when you say, maybe I need to value parry more, that's this. See what I mean? Parries are good when we have a lot of information because they're pretty committal. And it doesn't matter when you have low time because if we're parrying, we're making time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Parries are exactly what you need if you want to play this way. And so when you think about light, do you think light is more about early or late commitments?
Late.
Yeah, and so the way he makes that work is by parrying his ass off. So yeah, that's how that works.
I see.
Now I'm gonna tell you the game plan, okay?
Okay.
So this is what it comes down to. Instead of thinking about space in relationship to the stage, we have to think about space in relationship to us. Okay? And so essentially, we have a 4-step game plan. Oh, come here. Step 1, undershooting. Step 2, space pressure. Step 3, unspace pressure. Step 4, overshooting. Here's the idea, okay? Undershooting aims to secure our own space. If we think about what the opponent can do that scares us, it all essentially comes down to them entering our space. So think about it this way, right?
Yeah, like the drift back there. I'm covering my space.
Exactly. And so like what is scary about Steve? He's gonna like grab us and combo us. He's gonna jump back us and kill us. He's gonna minecart us and hit us. All of these things have one thing in common. Steve is moving towards you. Right? And so in a situation where we have no information, we just know we just know okay, their character, whatever. But we don't know their habits, etc., etc. We have to play around a worst case scenario, because if they get us with their best case scenario because we weren't playing around it, we just lose the game automatically. And there's a lot of players out there who go into a set trying to get their best case scenario from the get-go, right? And so what we're gonna try to do is we're gonna secure our own space. Now, securing our space essentially means that we should counter them entering our space. And so there are 2 ways to do this. Or let's say 3. One is walling, 2 is whiff punishing, and 3 is intercepting. Now, intercepting is, in my opinion, a very, very risky way to defend your own space. It's a decent read, right? Like, if you know they're going to do it, especially with, like, Arsene, you can run a Brar Bear, kill them.
Is intercepting hitting them before their move comes out? Like, so intercepting their jump? Okay.
Exactly. It's
Or-
like
or like-
instead of...
Would it be like catching someone's landing with a smash attack, like if they're landing on you aggressively?
So that would be a whiff punish, right?
Okay.
Because we're punishing the fact that they are trying to attack us, but we're making them miss.
Okay.
So walling, right? This is essentially like hitting the open air and hoping they run in. This is also called undershooting, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea behind is that walling is probably our best way to do this. Why? Because of the nuance that we discussed before, right? And so like because we can mix up all of these things, we can wall in infinite ways, which is really good for us. With punishing, generally not advised. Some characters can do it, e.g. Joker, Greninja, Inkling. But generally more read focused. You can still whiff punish. I don't mind whiff punishing in this context where it's like, okay, we are defending our own space, and so we're not like dash backing all the time. We're dash backing specifically to defend our own space. I feel like this is valid. One thing that I do think you should keep in mind with whiff punishing is oftentimes this leads to pressure more so than hits. Whereas walling, the nice thing about walling is that if they're wrong, they get hit, which is a fucking blessing, right? That's the thing that you've been missing. If I extrapolate from what you told me, because you feel like if you're right, you get pressure, and if they're right, they hit you. It's because they're swinging while they're doing things. You're not swinging while you're doing things as much. And so walling is really nice in that it's part really good game plan, and it's part execution check, which is nice. It's nice to be execution checking your opponent. Whiff punish is more of an execution check on our end, which is why I generally recommend whiff punish to lead into whiff punish pressure rather than an actual whiff punish itself, because again, the better your opponent gets, the less you're going to be whiff punishing, right? And then there's intercepting. This is again not advised. Decent read though, especially as Arsene, if they're used to you playing more like walling and whiff punish heavy, intercepting becomes a lot better because they're not used to it.
Especially when it'll kill. Yeah.
Exactly. And so undershooting is just generally a really good thing to do because one, it counters their best case scenario, and two, it plays into a really good element of the engine, which is just the fact that jumps are very unreactable, and so like our walling nairs are very hard to beat. Makes sense, right?
What about? I'll give you a scenario. Like, I cover space, so I retreat nair back, but like the Steve does like a. And granted, it probably won't combo, but like a landing, like when he lands, he jumps in with a fair or a jab or something, and even though I nared to cover the space, like I still got hit.
Right. And so in those scenarios, for him to be able to hit you, he would have to play around your nair specifically. Does that make sense? And so like, let's say you're doing a landing nair and he like jab and he outranges you. Well, in that case, first of all, he's probably already entered your space, so like we probably shouldn't be undershooting. They've already got where they want to be, right? And so we're too weak to like undershoot and secure. We have failed at securing our space. That makes sense, right? So if he's in race to jab us, we've already like we need to go a step back and like prevent him from getting there in the first place. But in it like let's say it's like a cloud like short hop back airing and outranging your nair, which is gonna happen quite a lot. So in those situations, we know that like there's a lot of ways in which we can nair in which we stop our back air, and there's generally like only one way in which his back air is actually going to hit us.
Okay.
Which is if he knows like let's say we're doing like a short hop like slight retreat nair and he like full hops in and like outspaces us.
Oh yeah,
if we did that
like
in
he
place,
has to do a ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
If we do it in place or slightly forward, or we do full hop, or we don't do a nair, or we do a nair a little bit later, or we drift it all the way back, all of these situations that are not this beat out that specific back air. And so Steve's jab is a little different because it's a really broken like grounded anti-air, which is rare. Most characters don't have that, right? Like so it's Steve, Crom. But generally against those characters, like if they are in that range, they've already they already entered our space.
Okay.
And so like at that point, we need to take a step back and make sure they don't do that in the future. And so like this is for neutral, right? And so like your game plan in these interactions, like I said, interactions are generally going to be more specific. So what happens now? There's two outcomes, right? There's always two outcomes. So two outcomes. One is they stop trying to attack your space, or two, they attack your space in different ways. And so if they do it in different ways, we're advantageous, right? Because the nuance is just too great. We're going to find some way to defend our space that they are going to struggle with, etc., etc. If they stop trying to attack our space, we go to step 2. At step 2, this is where we're going to space pressure. And so space pressure, this is going to be too complex to get into today because we're actually already over time. Or we're about to be. But essentially space pressure, this is all about mixing barely on or barely off the opponents. If they expect on, off beats it. If they expect off, on beats it. And the reason why is like, imagine, I'll give you like really quick rundown. Imagine they're like right here and we're jumping in and it's like an ambiguous nair, right? Is it going to miss or not?
If I'm right outside their shield, he might try to like hit me with like a jab out of shield, but if I'm on his shield, then he's going to get hit for doing that.
Exactly. And the other way around is also true, where if they think we're going to hit his shield but we miss, he's going to wait for the shield stun to be over and then counterattack. But because there's no shield stun, we'll be recovered by the time they try to counterattack. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like Link up B.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you empty land shield, they up B, or you miss, they up B, and then you know, you forward smash them. On space pressure is the next step, right? So again, this is again like there's two things they can do. They can try to stop us, in which case we either go back to undershooting or we do this you know, like we space a little bit better. And if they respect this, right? If they respect this mix up, then we go to unspace pressure, and this is essentially like your empty land grab type pressure. Because the issue with space pressure is that like if they just hold shield, we cannot open them up. Because we're always spaced. So we avoid their scary things, they avoid our scary things. And so like if you're playing against like let's say Game Watch, or if you're playing against let's say even like a young Link, right? Like they will just hold shield and just reset. And so all you gotta do against those characters is you gotta go for unspaced pressure. Well, you can, like, if they are actually that passive, you can go for unspaced pressure, and that's where we get unreactable pressure. But the reason why we don't go for unspaced pressure immediately is because we are committing very deep into their territory, right? And so we need the information that they're going to be passive for us to be able to justify going that deeply into their territory. Make sense?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, cool. Didn't pick up on you. So finally, if they leave because this pressure is too much, then you overshoot. But you can also corner. I recommend cornering. Overshooting is a very like shit risk reward kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's part of the idea. So this game plan works in essentially any matchup.
Right. I mean,
The
it's
issue-
intuitively there.
Yeah. And so the hardest thing about this game plan is when you're playing against characters that are good at attacking your space. So when our undershooting kind of gets beaten out. So that would be like a Mithra dash
Sora.
attack, a Sora, etc. Right? And so like these characters are harder to play against because it requires you to know more about your nuance. Because if you, like you said, if you always have the same timing, then they can read you just through that. But if we're aware of that and we mix that up, now they're doing really scary, really unsafe things. If you never mix in a full hop here and there, then they can assume you're going to short hop. If you always go through the air, if you always go for walling, if you always go for the same initial drift, if you always go for an aerial, right? It's like if you are not tuning into the full range of nuance you have available to you, then this game plan is going to suck ass. This is why I don't teach this to people until they get good at it, like a standard game plan. It's because this is really hard to do because you need to know all of the little things that you can do to mix up what you're doing.
Right.
And that's a lot. Right? So if you look at Leo, Leo showed this so well this weekend. Just the different ways in which he does the same thing. Because it's all like if you look at it and you like with an untrained eye, you know what you see? You see one thing. Short up nair, 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 short up nair. But if you look at it,
there's different nuances.
With this information in mind, you can see like the way he nairs is always just slightly different.
Yeah, like maybe he'll do like a nair, but then hit the shield with the second hit, or cover the space with the second hit, or full hop, or delay it.
Exactly. Yep.
I love the second hit of it.
Yeah. And so like this is the simplicity that you're asking for. It also lets you mash more, right, and take the initiative, whereas before you were not taking the initiative. It lets you understand, hey, now we understand interactions, but like what are the other things I can fix? Strategy and situation, right? And so within a strategy, sometimes you feel like, oh, I shouldn't be whiff punishing, but that's not true. You should be whiff punishing through different situations, right? So like the way you whiff punish might not work in terms of a dash back, but it might work with a full hop, or it might work with a roll in, or it might work if you're focusing on pressure instead of a direct punish, right? And so the different situations in a single strategy can also be very important. I think gun, by the way, is relevant in that what gun does is it gives you an intercept from walling distance, which is very rare. That is what I think makes gun really good. Yeah. You know how I said like intercepting is actually like kind of bad risk reward? It is. But
unless
gun
you
gives
have a
you
gun.
Exactly, unless you just shoot them up. Let's see. Rebels Guard here, I think what Rebels Guard is really good at is it's really good at catching your opponents in scramble situations. So you won't find Rebels Guards in neutrals, but this is more like a situation where like you're both scrambling for a position. You press the fucking button. You know what I mean? It's a good defensive option in that regard. But do keep in mind, Rebels Guards are gambles, and I've seen Leo die to that gamble plenty of times. So don't get too trigger happy. Yeah, but like what you need is you need to think about your strategy, right? Like, can you win this without getting another Arsendis stock, right? And so like what Rebels Guard does is Rebels Guard, if you Rebels Guard something impactful, you get a second Arsene in the stock. That's what it does.
Or you get Arsene earlier.
Yeah. And so like if you can win without that, you don't need to take the risk. So like that is strategically a choice you have to make. Can I win without that risk? And sometimes you can, sometimes you cannot. And so now they're playing your game because like they have to get close to you to hit you.
Yeah, otherwise they're getting pestered.
Exactly. That's another nice thing about gun chip damage, right? You force them to push, even if it's just a little bit.
So where
right?
does AHA fit in this? Is AHA...
AHA sucks ass.
Okay.
If you press that button, I'm gonna fucking like, nah. I think that move is bad. I think the only thing AHA does is it trades. Like if you think like, let's say you think
With
Link
a
is gonna
projectile,
throw like yeah,
or
it trades with
covers
projectiles.
movement. Like that
Right.
Aegon to covering... Aegon's the only move in the game that can cover an opponent's backdash.
True.
Well, from like half screen distance.
So like Aegon is fucking broken. AHA is fucking ass. I think AHA is like Joker's worst move by far.
Up tilt's pretty useless.
Yeah, AHA's worse.
So
I'm legit.
Yeah,
I'm legit. I think that move is I think that move is really, really, really freaking dookie.
So just don't use it at all. Just replace it with gun.
You can again you can use it to trade with like specific projectiles, but like if you have that hard of a read, why not just like jump over it and like nair through it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if that is the read, like fucking just like hit him. Anyway, I think with this I've answered a lot of your questions. It's a lot of new information, but well, I mean that's what you wanted, right?
Yep.
What do you think?
It feels like you put in, or like I feel like the 4-step game plan's like obvious. I feel like I was already doing that, but if you watch my game play, I probably wasn't really.
So like I think you actually said it best yourself. My play seems very sporadic. So there are times where you do this intuitively and you play very well, and then there's times where you go fucking ham and you die. And so by being more consciously aware of this plan,
I haven't heard that phrase in so
long. By being more aware, you can stick to it better.
I see.
Okay. I'm gonna move on. Or do you have any other thoughts that you want to discuss before I'm leaving you?
You got another session? Yeah.
I do.
And our
I do.
session's up. But yeah, I don't know why I struggle with Sora.
So the thing about Sora,
I'll just watch and figure it out.
So the thing about Sora, I'll give you some quick advice. So first of all, you cannot whiff punish Sora. And second of all, Sora is almost never entering your space, right? And so you cannot play it's hard to play that way against him. So what you got to do is you got to realize, hey, Sora is not entering my space, so I can use my space to attack his. But then it's hard to attack his because again, like he has like the nair shit,
gonna
right?
Intercept me, yeah.
Right. And so what you got to do is you got to bait him into coming into your space and then you hit him. That's the TLDR. Another thing that you can think about against Sora is like Firaga is probably like one of the best projectiles in the game.
Yeah.
Because it attacks your space without him committing to it.
And
right?
he could combo off of it.
Right. So like it's like T-Jolt, but like arguably a better T-Jolt, arguably worse. I think it's a little bit better. So once he has Firaga, what you want to do is you want to mitigate that. So for example, go to a platform or maybe even clank it if you feel comfortable with that. And then when he doesn't have it, that's when you can play more defensively. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. So, hit him for coming in your space. What do you mean?
So like, here's the thing, right? He wants to intercept you, right?
Okay.
But intercepting is like not a very smart idea.
Right.
Because he's gonna do like rising nair, and like we cannot whiff punish it, but now he has to land, right? And so we get whiff punish pressure on that. And so, but he's not gonna nair until he feels like he has to intercept you. So you gotta bait him into feeling like he has to keep you out, and then when he does that, then you set up pressure on the whiff.
So focus more on pressure than.
And feints. Focus on feints. Make him swing first.
Well, he's always swinging.
Well, that makes it easier for you.
Right.
There you
All
go.
right, all right. I'm gonna figure it out. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. I'm gonna send you the VOD later tonight. If you have any questions, just send me a message. And best of luck working on this stuff, dude. It's gonna take a while, so give yourself grace. And if you bump into any issues, just let me know. Okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. You take care, yeah.
Have a good one.
See ya. You too. Bye.